Welcome to the deep dive. We take that stack of sources you sent over all the articles, notes, research, and, well, we distill it for you.
Basically, yeah. Giving you the core insights, maybe a few laughs along the way.
Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, it's a big one. The incredible journey of the Latin alphabet.
From stone chisels right up to, well, maybe Neuralink. It's a wild ride.
We're calling this one From Chisel to Neuralink, based on all the great material you shared. Expect some surprises.
Definitely.
So let's start sort of at the beginning, the prologue, if you will. Picture this. Someone in a cave,
Well,
not painting an animal, but scratching a symbol. A deliberate mark that means something, doesn't just depict something.
that's the leap, isn't it? From picture to abstract sign. Mind-blowing, really.
It totally is. The moment knowledge starts moving from just memory and speech.
To something physical, something lasting, something you can share across time.
Exactly. Before that, it's all just whispers on the wind almost. Writing pins it down.
And what's fascinating, you see this in the sources, is that it wasn't just one place, one time.
Right, it pops up independently all over.
You've got Sumerian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs, Chinese characters, Mayan glyphs, totally separate inventions.
It shows how fundamental that urge is, doesn't it? To record, to communicate beyond the immediate.
Absolutely. But today, our focus is squarely on the Latin script.
And not because it's inherently better or anything, the materials are clear on that.
No, not at all. It's just that its story, its evolution, tells us so much about, well, us.
About technology and culture constantly shaving each other. From those Roman monuments.
This is the phone screen you're probably holding right now. It's all connected.
Which leads to this really profound question that jumps out from the intro material.
What happens when writing stops being writing?
Hmm.
Physically, I mean.
Yeah, when you break that brain-hand page loop that's existed for millennia.
What do we gain? Efficiency, speed, maybe.
Wow.
But what subtle things might we lose?
That connection between thinking and the physical act of forming letters, it's a deep one.
It really is.
Mm.
And we'll definitely keep coming back to that throughout this.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead, let's lay the groundwork. Part 1, Foundations in Stone and Scroll, covering the 1st to 4th centuries.
The bedrock.
Exactly. And Chapter 1 kicks off strong, monumental capitals writing as empire.
Picture it. Rome, around 113 CE. You're near Trajan's column.
You hear that sound, right? That rhythmic tap-tap-tap of a mason's chisel on marble.
Marble dust in the air.
And what's being carved? MPC sorry. It's not just letters, it's power.
It's empire literally written in stone. Writing is architecture. Meant to last forever.
And those letters, they weren't just hacked out. There's a real precision there.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Typographers today still geek out over them. It's this perfect marriage of the circle and the square.
You see those strong verticals, the clean things, and the serifs, those little feet.
The serifs, they give it that stability, that grace. It just looks solid, anchored.
And the technology carving stone that totally shaped the forms, didn't it?
For sure. Straight lines, decisive cuts. Much easier to carve than complex curves.
But it wasn't just the mason. There's this fascinating detail about the process.
The brush first, right.
Yeah, a scribe paints the letters onto the stone with a flat brush.
And holding that brush at an angle.
Creates the thick and thin strokes. That's where it comes from. Then the mason follows the lines.
Mind blown. So that contrast we still see comes from a Roman paintbrush.
Crazy, isn't it? Now, jump forward 2,000 years.
Okay.
There's a typographer, San Francisco, snapping photos that same Trajan's column.
Looking for inspiration for a digital font.
Exactly. Those shapes just endure. Empires fall, technologies change, but the letters.
They persist. It's incredible. The source talks about her almost having a conversation with those serifs.
Yeah, they're quiet authority. And then those photos become pixels, vectors.
The chisel's mark echoed in the pixel. The emperor's decree in a designer's font file.
The Latin script just keeps rolling.
It really does.
Okay, so that's the monumental side. Big, grand, eternal. But what about everyday life?
Right, because not everything was carved in stone.
Chapter 2. Everyday empire, Latin cursive, and wax tablets.
Okay, so step away from the forum into the hustle and bustle.
Imagine a military quartermaster. He's not carving marble. He's got a stylus.
And a wax tablet.
Right.
Right. Portable, reusable.
And he's scribbling inventory. 426 spears, 138 shields. Quick, messy notes.
That's old Roman cursive. It looks nothing like the capitals.
No way. It's cramped, hurried, practical, connected letters flowing together.
Cursive, from career to run. It's writing on the move. For the moment, not the ages.
It's Rome's internal memo system, basically, managing the logistics.
And it highlights that point again. The
Uh,
tools matter.
Definitely. The stylus on a wax, how it feels, how it moves.
It subtly guides how letters are formed over time. Not conscious design, just adaptation.
Makes sense. And this cursive was used for everything.
Bureaucracy, obviously. Army stuff, taxes.
Business deals in the market, personal letters sent across the empire.
And even graffiti. Jokes, insults, love notes scratched on walls.
Gives you a real sense of everyday literacy, doesn't it? Beyond just the elite.
Totally. Now, Roman numerals. Can't talk Roman writing without them.
Right. Not pretty, maybe, but functional, purely additive.
Pi, V, X, L, C, D, M, MMX83. Simple addition, mostly.
And their origin. Theories abound, right? Tally marks, fingers and hands.
Yeah. Or Etruscan links, counting board notches. The key thing is they feel carved.
Straight lines, angles, easy to chisel.
And you saw them everywhere. Legion standards, Legio X, milestones along the roads, MP3 miles.
Monument dates. Anno Urbis Condite, whatever, visual language of Roman power.
But not great for complex math.
No kidding. Adding and subtracting is okay, but multiplication, division, forget it.
Which is why Hindu-Arabic numerals eventually took over, starting around the 13th century with Fibonacci.
That positional system 1, 2, 3 is just way more efficient for calculation.
But the change wasn't overnight. Roman numerals hung on.
And they still have this weight, this formality. You see them on cornerstones, clocks, Super Bowl logos.
Yeah, that connection to their monumental past gives them a kind of classical vibe. Symmetry, too, like 12 and sex on a clock face.
But here's the paradox. They're everywhere, but most people don't really get them.
Right. Ask someone MCMX TNX. Watch the pause.
Exactly. Especially the subtractive bits like IV4, IX9. People recognize the symbols.
But don't necessarily process the underlying math quickly, like logographs almost.
And that example of the morphine inferior is chilling. Misreading it as morphine 4
shows that disconnect. Visual familiarity isn't functional understanding.
a powerful point about symbols and meaning. Okay, let's shift focus again from the practical empire to the sacred realm.
Chapter 3. Sacred Letters Uncial and the Rise of the Codex.
So now imagine an early medieval monastery, a scribe, maybe named Brendan.
Quiet concentration.
Reverend.
Writing sacred texts, it's not just a job, it's prayer, devotion.
And the script reflects that. Uncial. It's a big shift from those rigid Roman capitals. Softer, rounder, more flowing.
Exactly. Still majuscule big letters, but the geometry changes. Circular O, rounded D, curved E. It feels harmonious.
Suited for holy words. And the technology changes too, right? No more scrolls.
Big change. Scrolls become codices bound books like we have now.
And papyrus gives way to parchment or vellum, animal skins.
Much more durable. And you can write on both sides. Suddenly you can have much longer texts in one volume.
And the ink, different too.
Iron gall ink.
Yeah?
Made from oak galls, iron sulfate.
Yeah.
Makes this deep black.
Which oxidizes to brown over time, that lovely aged look.
And it bonds with the parchment. Hard to erase. Fitting for unchanging sacred texts, wouldn't you say?
Makes perfect sense. Unalterable words. So uncial reflects different values.
Totally. Roman capitals were public, imperial, commanding. Uncial feels more private, intimate, contemplative.
The roundness echoing sacred geometry, maybe. Inviting slower, meditative reading.
I think so. And then comes half uncial.
Ah, the beginnings of lowercase.
The very first clear signs. That rounded A with a little tail, the D with an ascender, the G starting to loop.
Still written continuously, but introducing new shapes, new rhythms, easier to read faster eventually.
And these scripts spread via missionaries, scholars, copying texts. The Codex Sinaiticus is a key example.
Then you get places like Ireland and Britain, a bit isolated.
And they develop their own amazing styles. The insular scripts. Think Book of Kells.
Oh, breathtaking. The level of detail, the illumination.
Exactly. Decorative initials, rubrics in red ink, gold leaf, vibrant colors. Lindisfarne Gospels, too.
Writing becomes high art, sacred art.
Truly.
Okay, from the quiet contemplation of the monastery, let's plunge back into a more chaotic world.
A world in flux. Chapter 4. Scripts of Survival, New Roman Cursive.
Yeah, the Roman Empire's fragmenting, the pace changes. Uncial feels slow, deliberate. This is about urgency.
Picture Cassius, a legal scribe. He needs efficiency, not divine beauty.
This new Roman cursive pops up around the 3rd century. It's basically a tidied-up version of the old messy cursive.
Right, more regularized. And it becomes the go-to administrative hand after Rome falls, influencing scripts for centuries.
And it wasn't designed in a committee meeting.
No way. It evolved. Countless little changes by ordinary people just trying to write faster, clearer, solve everyday problems.
And we have evidence, right? What kind of documents survive?
All sorts. Legal papyri property deals, tax receipts, wax tablets, army supplies, personnel lists.
And graffiti again.
Mhm.
Politics, jokes, insults, the usual human stuff.
And these humble documents are gold dust for historians.
Because they show literacy wasn't just monks and priests.
Exactly. Merchants, officials, managers, soldiers. People needed to read and write for practical reasons. Literacy persisted, even if high literature declined.
And as Rome's central power faded, the script started diverging regionally.
Yep. You see distinct styles emerging. Visigothic in Spain with pointy bits, Merovingian in France, kind of compressed, Ireland and Britain developing unique hybrids.
These eventually become the national hands of early medieval Europe.
So New Roman cursive is crucial. It's the script of adaptation, of survival.
It's the bridge between ancient Rome and the medieval world.
And critically, it's where our lowercase letters really take shape. Not by grand design.
But from anonymous hands needing to write faster. Amazing.
Totally.
Right, now we move into a period of consolidation and reform. Part 2. Carolingian Renaissance, 8th, 12th century.
A conscious effort to bring order.
Starting with Chapter 5. The script that saves civilization, Carolingian minuscule. Big claim.
Maybe a little dramatic, but the sources argue it's hugely influential. Think Charlemagne, Alcuin, around 800 CE.
A planned reform with political goals.
Definitely. Charlemagne's empire was huge, diverse, different customs, dialects, and scripts.
Which were becoming illegible, hard to read across regions.
Exactly. Hindering administration. And worse, errors were creeping into copies of the Bible and other vital texts. Bad for religious unity.
So Carolingian minuscule is the answer. What did it look like?
Clean, clear, rounded, open letters. And, crucially, consistent spaces between words.
That was revolutionary.
Pretty much. Earlier scripts often ran words together. This script had discipline, elegant ascenders, and descenders. Easy on the eye.
And it was efficient. Didn't waste precious vellum.
Right. Readable and relatively compact. Plus, the technology was improving.
Better vellum, standardized quill nibs, better ink.
Yep. Smoother surfaces, consistent tools, deep black ink. And the layout improved too.
Systematic ruling for margins and letter height. More organized pages.
Made a huge difference. It looked less cramped, more airy.
And they rolled it out systematically.
Very much so. Master copies made in centers like Aachen were sent out to monasteries, cathedrals. Scribes were trained.
So it spread, creating a standard.
Exactly. Maintaining the core features everywhere.
And the impact. Huge, right?
Transformative.
Yeah.
Standard writing meant standard education was easier. Administration became way more efficient. Ideas could travel more easily across the empire.
Helped foster that whole Carolingian intellectual revival.
No doubt about it.
Okay, alongside this beautiful bookhand, there was something else. Chapter 6. Writing for an Empire Carolingian cursive.
Right. Minuscule was for legibility, preservation. Cursive was for speed.
The practical hand of Charlemagne's administration. Getting the daily business done.
Think of those chancery scribes. Under pressure, they develop shortcuts, abbreviations, link letters together.
Driven by the need for speed and efficiency?
Totally. And look at the documents.
Yep.
Land transfers, tax records, court proceedings, army supplies, diplomacy, inventories, wills, marriage contracts.
Wow. Shows a real expansion of written record keeping beyond just the church.
Definitely. A growing culture of documentation. And we all see the personal signature becoming more common.
As literacy spreads beyond just professional scribes, a mark of authentication.
Yes, exactly. Your personal mark.
You can really feel the contrast, can't you? The slow pace of the scriptorium making minuscule.
Versus the frantic pace of the administrative office churning out cursive.
Sacred time versus secular urgency, like formal reports versus quick emails today.
Good analogy. And like other cursives, as the empire weakened, it fragmented.
Regional variations popped up again. Diplomatica, chancery hand.
Yeah, different styles, but still recognizably built on that Carolingian cursive base.
But this cursive gets less attention than the minuscule.
Historically, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe seen as less beautiful, less important, but it tells us so much about how medieval society actually functioned outside the monasteries.
Its legacy is still there, though, in later administrative hands, shorthand.
Absolutely. That emphasis on speed influenced later cursive styles, right up to modern handwriting.
Fascinating. Okay, part 3. Gothic and humanist scripts, 12th, 15th century. Things get pointy.
Literally. Chapter 7. Towering letters, Gothic black letter.
Let's go to Paris again, maybe 13th century, a cold scriptorium. scribe named Thomas.
And he's writing textura quadrata.
And the source makes that great connection to Gothic cathedrals outside. Tall, narrow, dense.
Packed together.
Huh?
Creates this dark texture on the page. Reflects that complex, bustling urban life.
And this wasn't just fashion, right? Gothic script emerges for concrete reasons.
Huge socioeconomic shifts.
Yeah.
Cities booming, universities starting up, trade expanding.
Massive demand for books.
Exactly. And parchment was still super expensive.
So Gothic was efficient, compressing letters vertically.
Totally. Fit way more text, maybe 30–40% more on a page than Carolingian minuscule. Efficiency was key.
But Gothic isn't just one thing. It's a family of scripts.
Right. 4 main types mentioned. First, textura quadrata. Most formal, rigid verticals, minimal curves, that biting where letters touch. For luxury Bibles, theology, Northern Europe mostly.
Hey.
Rotunda. More common in Southern Europe, Italy, Spain. Kept more curves, especially M and N. Bit more legible, still efficient.
Then Bastarda.
The hybrid. Yeah, bastard secretary. Mixed formal Gothic with cursive speed. Less rigid. Good for uni texts, literature, admin stuff. France, Burgundy, England.
And finally, Fraktur.
Developed a bit later, German regions, early 1500s. Distinctive broken strokes, often quite ornate. Hung around for a long time, got tied up with German identity.
And the tech kept pace. Urban workshops, narrower quills for angularity, super black ink.
All contributed to that black letter look. Page layout got complex, 2 ruled lines, often 2 columns to pack it in.
And this visual density kind of mirrors the intellectual culture. Intricate arguments, layers of commentary.
Yeah, the source connects it well. Think of those manuscripts with the main text, then glosses in the margins, commentary below. A visual hierarchy reflecting complex thought.
And Gothic's legacy, still around in places.
Definitely. Fraktur in Germany until the Nazis weirdly promoted then banned it. Still see Gothic on diplomas, newspaper mastheads for that traditional feel.
And heavy metal album covers.
Huh, true. Evokes that medieval, maybe slightly dark vibe, instantly recognizable.
So, young Thomas the scribe had no idea his efficient script would have such a long, weird afterlife.
Not a clue. Just doing his job, reflecting his world.
Okay, from the formal bookhands to the engine room again. Chapter 8. The cursive of commerce, Gothic administrative hands.
Back to getting things done. This isn't textura for eternity, it's cursive for Tuesday's accounts.
Legal documents, business letters, university admin, the nuts and bolts.
And again, regional variations develop. English secretary hand, French court hand, Italian cancelleresca, different flavors, same goal.
Practicality.
Designed for speed, but also recognizability, anti-forgery.
Yeah, distinctive loops and shapes acted almost like a professional badge, showed you were a trained scribe.
And writing becomes more of a middle-class job, right? Not just monks anymore.
Reflects that shift towards a more secular professional world needing efficient record-keeping.
And the sheer amount of stuff produced. Charters, patents, court rolls, contracts, accounts, guild rules, taxes.
An explosion of paperwork.
Yeah.
Shows a society run on written documents. Authority resides in the properly written, properly sealed piece of parchment.
This cursive was the nervous system of the state and commerce.
But it got messy, didn't it? By the 15th century.
Too many variations causing confusion, too many abbreviations, hard to read even for prose. Exactly. The system became a victim of its own success. Too complex, too opaque, ripe for reform.
Imagine William Hockleave in the Privy Seal office, just writing away automatically.
No idea the humanists were about to call his script Gothic and replace it, or that print would make it obsolete. For him, it was just efficient.
Which brings us to Chapter 9. The Renaissance of the Letter Humanist Scripts.
A breath of fresh air, or at least that's how they saw it.
Starts with that great story. Niccolo Niccoli finds an old Carolingian manuscript.
And thinks it's actual ancient Roman writing. A lucky mistake.
Because it inspires him and others, Poggio Bracciolini, to create a new script based on it.
Humanist minuscule, the ancestor of our modern Roman typefaces.
Driven by that whole Renaissance vibe, right? Back to classical clarity, balance, reason.
Rejecting Gothic as dark, complex, barbaric even. They wanted light, openness.
And the script looks like that. Open, rounded, clear spaces, elegant curves.
Exactly. Airy pages. Embodied Renaissance values. Easy to read, accessible.
Catches on fast in Florence. Niccoli develops a slanted version, too.
Yeah, influencing italics later. By the 1430s, proscribes are using it for luxury books for rich patrons. It becomes the cool intellectual script.
And then writing manuals appear. Feliciano Ari Tabiente.
Codifying it, spreading the knowledge. Like Renaissance calligraphy tutorials, democratizing elegant writing.
And then, bang! Gutenberg. Movable type arrives around 1450.
Perfect timing. Printers in Italy especially adopt the humanist style for their newfangled type.
So Roman type beats Gothic, mostly because of this aesthetic shift.
Largely, yeah. Though Gothic hangs on in Germany and for legal religious stuff for a while.
So Niccoli, carefully copying his Roman script, had no idea he was midwife to the future of print.
Total historical irony. But a beautiful one.
Okay, final chapter in this part. The slanted revolution, humanist cursive, and the birth of italic.
So, alongside the formal humanist minuscule, a cursive version develops.
Faster, more personal, but still clear and elegant.
Right. Scholars, officials loved it. Good handwriting becomes a status symbol again, part of being a refined Renaissance person.
The papal chancery refines it further. Slanted, flowing, elegant.
By the early 16th century, yeah. And it spreads across Europe with regional tweaks, but keeping that humanist cursive DNA.
And this leads directly to italic type.
Crucial link. All this minutiae, the Venetian printer, around 1500, wants smaller, cheaper books.
Sees the compact, slanted humanist cursive.
And gets Francesco Griffa to cut type based on it, to fit more words per page.
So early italic type wasn't just slanted Roman, it was based on actual handwriting.
Absolutely. Even had ligatures, cursive elements, initially used for whole texts, linked that prestige handwriting tradition to print.
Wow, okay, massive time jump now. Part 4, mechanization and modernity.
Things get mechanical and stripped down.
Chapter 15, typewriters and sans serif modernism. 2 scenes.
Scene 1, New York Times newsroom, 1924. Clatter, clatter, clatter.
Remington typewriters. Every letter identical. Mechanical precision, no personality.
Scene 2, Bauhaus School, Germany. Student with ruler and compass.
Drawing letters. Perfect circles, straight lines. No serifs, no thick-thin. Pure geometry. Future in the making.
And these two moments, they mark the break.
The final severing of handwriting from formal typography. The typed modern age begins.
Writing becomes hitting keys, not forming letters. Different muscles, different brain pathways.
Changes how we compose text, apparently.
And the typewriter's impact.
Yeah.
Immense. Business, government, personal letters, efficiency, legibility, copies.
Handwriting gets pushed to the margins. Personal notes, signatures.
Parallel revolution in type design. Sans serifs takeover.
Stripped down, no frills. Seen as modern, rational, functional.
A rejection of history, of decoration, Johnston's underground font, Futura, Gill Sans, and eventually Helvetica.
The ultimate corporate typeface. Neutral, efficient, global.
It wasn't just aesthetics, it was ideology, modernism, progress, technology. Serif fonts felt old-fashioned.
New printing tech like offset litho helped too. Cleaner reproduction.
Definitely. By the 60s, Swiss-style Helvetica is dominant, then digital comes along.
And low-res screens favored simple sans serifs too. Chicago, Geneva, Arial, Verdana.
Made them even more ubiquitous. So the 20th century basically mechanized the Latin script.
From hand to machine interface. Rationalized forms, mirroring broader cultural shifts.
Though, like you said, signatures, personal letters, those traces of the hand remain.
Okay, but while typewriters were taking over, what was happening with teaching handwriting? Chapter 16, the rise of the standard hand palmer and the triumph of cursive.
Ah, the Palmer method. Huge in American schools, early 20th century.
Super systematic, right? Drills, loops, ovals, strict posture.
Very mechanistic, all about efficiency and legibility. Fit that progressive era obsession with standardization.
And it had a moral angle, too. Good handwriting equals good character.
Oh, yeah. Discipline, order, attention to detail. Slovenly writing indicates a slovenly mind, they said.
Wow. And it was everywhere. 80% of schools.
Estimates say, yeah.
Yeah.
Other methods like Zahner-Bloser existed, but similar principles. Systematic instruction was key.
And cursive was essential outside school, too. Jobs, letters, checks.
Absolutely. A vital skill. A class marker, almost.
But then computers arrived.
And cursive instruction started to decline, especially in the U.S. Keyboards took priority.
Though it persists in some places. Montessori, classical schools, other countries.
Sure. And it still holds symbolic value, right? Signatures, personal notes, represents care, individuality.
So it's this paradox. Just as machines displace handwriting, instruction becomes hyper-systematic.
Fascinating, isn't it? Shows script is both tech and cultural practice, loaded with meaning.
Right, now let's zoom out. Part V, global scripts and signatures, wider perspective.
How did the Latin script go global, and how do other cultures handle authentication?
Crucial context. Shows adaptability, but also limits. Helps understand the digital age better, too.
Exactly.
Chapter 13. A World Written in Latin.
Starts with Alexander de Rhodes in Vietnam, 17th century, adapting Latin letters with tone marks,
Made reading way easier, faster. A key moment in Latinization.
which really takes off 18th, 19th centuries,
Yeah.
Asia, Africa, Pacific, driven by colonialism, modernization.
Multiple pathways, though, sometimes imposed by colonizers.
Often, yeah. Through schools, admin, religion, Spanish in the Americas, English in India, sometimes suppressed local scripts,
But sometimes adopted willingly. Nationalist reforms.
like Ataturk in Turkey, replacing Arabic script. Symbol of modernization, breaking with the past, connecting internationally.
And sometimes just technological necessity. Telegraph, early computers.
Limited character sets favored Latin initially.
And even after the Soviet Union collapsed, some Central Asian nations chose Latin.
Yeah, distancing from Russian influence, linking to Turkic identity or Western economies.
We also see diaspora communities innovating, like Hefmong RPA.
Developed by missionaries for refugees, became vital for Hmong cultural identity using Latin letters.
And then there's the ultimate universalization, the IPA.
International Phonetic Alphabet,
Yeah.
1888. To transcribe sounds of all languages accurately, neutrally.
Adapts Latin letters with tons of extra symbols and diacritics.
Becomes indispensable for linguistics, dictionaries, language learning, speech tech. Latin transforms from cultural artifact to scientific tool.
Almost achieving neutrality through universality.
And thinking digitally, early computing infrastructure based on Latin-influenced global practices. Not always permanent imposition like colonialism.
But Latin as a temporary input layer, like Pinyin for Chinese.
Exactly. Creating dual literacy. Think Arabizi or Hinglish in texting.
But now, digital tools are also helping revive indigenous scripts, fonts, keyboards.
That's the paradox. The tech that privileged Latin now aids resistance and revival.
So Latin becomes this global vessel, adaptable, carrying diverse languages, losing its purely European identity.
Spread through power, yes, but its flexibility made it a global tool, transformed by every use. And IPA gives it this weird scientific immortality.
Okay, now compare authentication, chapter 14. Signed or stamped sealing the self in East and West.
London, 1890. British merchant signs with a flourish. Tokyo, same year. Japanese counterpart stamps with a Hanko seal.
Same legal act, totally different tech. Reveals different ideas about self, authority, permanence.
The Western signature. A performance of identity. Direct extension of the person. Evolved from a simple mark.
Cursive styles like Spencerian allowed for expressive, unique signatures for authentication.
By the 19th century, it's more than just ID. Art, politics, commitment, validation. To sign is to be there, take responsibility.
And the physical act matters. Pen pressure, strokes, leads to forgery concerns, forensic analysis, a fossil of a performance.
Contrast with East Asia. The seal,
Yeah.
Inzang Hanko Dojang, primary tool for centuries. Carved in advanced stone, ivory, wood, impressed with red ink.
Represents constancy, formal perfection, an unchanging symbol, not a variable action.
Craftsmanship matters. Seal quality reflects status. Durable materials meant to last, maybe be inherited. Vermilion ink is auspicious, permanent.
Japan's system is super elaborate. Jitsuin official, Gingshin Bank, Mitomen every day, permeates life.
And this influences digital approaches too. West looks at behavioral biometrics for signatures. East might focus on image comparison for digital seals.
Culturally, signature is individualistic, agency, the moment. Seal is constancy, social position, enduring form.
Different philosophies of self and society embedded in the technology.
And now, global business often requires both signature and seal.
A fascinating comparison. Shows how deep these cultural patterns run.
Okay, finally, part 6, the digital era. Where we are now and where we might be going.
The pixels and beyond.
Chapter 17, typography goes global from print to pixels. Apple HQ 2019.
Designers tweaking the San Francisco font. Seen by billions, noticed by few.
That shift from paper to screen backlit, dynamic, pixels not ink is huge. Changes everything about reading and writing.
And the interface changes. Hand to typewriter to everything. Keyboards touch, voice swipe, predictive text.
QWERTY keyboard hangs on, though. Funny that. Even mechanical keyboards making a comeback for the feel.
Shows it's not just function. Mobile adds touchscreens, swipe, emoji, and predictive text.
Which subtly shapes what we write.
Right.
We're curating suggestions as much as composing.
Totally. And voice input bypasses the hand entirely. Speech to text getting better and better. What happens then?
And the weirdest part, Latin as the input method for non-Latin scripts. Opinion, Romaji.
That invisible interface for billions.
Yeah.
Different from colonial imposition, it's a temporary functional layer now. Creates that dual literacy.
Digital Latin typography leans towards clean sans serifs. San Francisco, Roboto, Sigo UI, screen legibility, clarity, neutrality.
Often aiming for typographic invisibility in interfaces.
Yeah.
Just deliver the content smoothly.
Design tools make it easier for anyone to do typography now, too, democratizing, but maybe homogenizing.
Possibly. And then emoji. Picture sneaking back in alongside letters.
Adding emotion, emphasis, a future hybrid language.
Who knows? But for Latin, digital means global expansion and transformation. It's the OS of digital writing. More universal, less visible.
Which leads to the final chapter, beyond writing the postscript future.
The speculative edge. Stanford Lab 2025. Writing with her brain. Neural interface.
Is this the next step? It makes us think about handwriting again.
Research suggests handwriting engages the brain differently than typing. Good for learning, memory, creativity maybe. Why it sticks around in schools.
This whole shift feels massive.
Yeah.
Oral to written culture all over again, from embodied inscription to disembodied transcription.
Predictive text, voice, brain interfaces.
Yeah.
Is it still writing? Dispelling matter? Can we communicate beyond language? Synthetic telepathy?
Wild stuff. But counter-arguments exist. We still need archives. Externalizing thought is useful. Aesthetics matter. Calligraphy. Good type.
So maybe not replacement, but fragmentation. Specialization.
Yeah, brain interfaces for quick stuff, handwriting for reflection, formal type for permanence, different tools for different jobs, like now, but more so.
Trends point both ways. Detachment from old skills, but also renewed appreciation.
Writing diversifies. The question is, what functions remain essential?
For Latin script, its role as digital interface and global bridge seems safe for now, but even that might shrink with direct neural links. Could become more historical, cultural.
But Latin has always adapted, hasn't it? Chisel, brush, quill, press, typewriter, pixel.
It'll likely adapt again, maybe become more abstract.
Right.
Writing is technology, but also deep culture. Symbolic value often outlasts practical use.
So we end with that image, the woman thinking her words.
And they appear in a sans serif font descended from Roman capitals, the deep past connected to the bleeding edge.
From Chisel to Neuralink. It's all about that human need to get thoughts out, share them, make them last.
What a journey. From cave markings to potential mind melding.
And that constant dance between tech and culture shaping how we use the Latin script. Incredible.
So the final thought to leave you with, drawing from that epilogue material.
Yeah.
Think about today, all our digital stuff. How much of it will last?
Oof, good question. Ephemeral digital files versus stone inscriptions.
Exactly. What will future people find or not find? That idea of the amnesia of Earth. Are we creating enduring knowledge or just digital dust?
Wow. Something to definitely chew on. The future of writing and our own relationship with it.
Makes you think.
It certainly does. Thank you for joining us on this massive deep dive into the life of the Latin alphabet.